The year is 1989. Jimmy Woods is a young boy suffering from PTSD after his twin sister Jennifer drowned 2 years earlier. He perpetually carries around a lunchbox, and I've been reading the plot summary for The Wizard on Wikipedia the whole time. This was a movie that came out, and unsurprisingly, no one really cared about the movie itself. What people did care about The Wizard for was the first appearance of this.
Super Mario Brothers 3!
After the smash hit of Super Mario Bros., Mario's reputation was booming in the United States. His name became synonymous with gaming, and next to Mario was Nintendo, who became equally as famous. Super Mario Bros. 2 was successful, but didn't quite capture the same easy-to-play charm that the original possessed. The series' third installment, though, had people buzzing. Super Mario Bros. 3 had released in Japan already by this point, releasing for the Famicom in 1988. However, crucial shortages were affecting the entire electronics industry, and Mario 3 was kept from the world for a while longer. This way it ended up working out for Nintendo, as it built a level of hype in America that few games have matched since. Mario 2 worked well to whet the appetite of American gamers, and the launch of the portable Game Boy system brought another new Mario game, Super Mario Land, to the States. That wasn't good enough, though. Mario 2 and Mario Land are very solid games that have their fans, but Super Mario Bros. 3 was being hyped as the ultimate Mario game. Mario 3's appearance in The Wizard and the steady reveal of new information through Nintendo's official magazine, Nintendo Power, both seemed to confirm Mario 3's titanic appeal. On February 12, 1990, Super Mario Bros. 3 was at long last released for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and American gamers finally got the chance to play this long-awaited sequel. Was it worth the wait? Well, people were immediately infatuated with Mario 3, and that's pretty much still the case today. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a mainstay among best games of all time lists, but is the hype real? Is Mario 3 2020 good, or just 1990 good? And, well, that's exactly the question I intend on answering today. I now present Super Mario Bros. 3, a screenplay. I don't know why this title screen has no music. It's a baffling decision, and I believe it's based in the tradition set forth by the original Super Mario Bros. Whatever the case, it sets up the carefree, wacky adventure we're about to embark on. Upon loading into the game, Mario 3's first major change is immediately apparent when you spawn into a world map. Rather than being another sequential romp through a line of levels like the first two games, Mario 3 has an element of choice, with branching paths, obstacles, and optional minigames on the map, bringing some spice to the game. This feature would become a staple of the series, and is one of the defining new features of Mario 3. Despite the addition of the world map, though, the majority of your time in Mario 3 will still take place in the standard 2D Mario levels, and so we should probably take a peek at the first level just to see what we're getting ourselves into. Yep, this is a Mario game. Super Mario Bros. 3 has a familiar feel to anyone who played Mario 1, and that's because the level design and gameplay are both very close to the pure 2D horizontal platforming gameplay found in the original. As we go through what Mario 3 has to offer, it will become clear that Mario 3 has way more going on ideas-wise. But at its core, Super Mario Bros. 3 is the sequel that neither version of Super Mario Bros. 2 could claim to be. One of the biggest differences between Mario 1 and Mario 3 is the difference in setting. Mario 1 takes place in the Mushroom Kingdom, and primarily sees Mario travel through a series of similar-looking grasslands and castles to rescue Princess Toadstool. Mario 3 takes place in the similarly named Mushroom World, a more diverse land that takes the idea of Mario 2's subcon and its different worlds, and absolutely runs with it, seeing Mario visit 8 worlds that are distinct, unique, and truly varied in their level design. Princess Toadstool isn't kidnapped at the beginning of the game, unlike most Mario games, and instead, the goal is to visit each of the 7 kingdoms and liberate their respective kings who have been turned into furries by Bowser's kids, the Koopalings. Or they're not his kids, I still don't know. Just because there's now a world map and more levels, doesn't mean Mario 3 is automatically an upgrade on Mario 1, though. The original Super Mario Bros. Is considered by many to be a timeless classic, and as I discussed in my review of that game, it is still every bit as playable in 2020 as it was 35 years ago when it was released. Mario 2 is a totally different type of game in my opinion, and shouldn't really be in the discussion here. Mario 3 is the true successor to Mario 1, so it needs to be an upgrade on the foundation that Mario 1 laid. Super Mario Bros. 3 was the birthplace of the wacky level design that 2D Mario games have made their calling card. Mario 1 was fairly bare bones, at least in the enemy placement and the level gimmicks. Mario 3 sees a wholesale expansion on everything, and is the birthplace of many modern day level tropes. Some enemies introduced in Mario 3 have become icons of the series, including the Boo, the Thwomp, and the Chain Chomp, and levels such as beach levels, pipe mazes, floating airships, level with giant enemies, and some of the crazier levels in the last world are way more intense than anything in the first two games in the series had. And considering this game is on the NES, the same platform the first two games were on, all of these additions are nuts. Surprisingly though, I don't even consider these additions to be the defining feature of Super Mario Bros. 3. In my opinion, the reason Mario 3 still holds up as well as it does is because of the way Mario controls. Super Mario Bros. Had controls that were leagues ahead of the competition, but feel clunky and unrefined now. Super Mario Bros. 2 feels a lot cleaner, but has smaller issues I felt like I was dealing with somewhat frequently. Super Mario Bros. 3 feels exactly how I would want it to. The term I've seen used online the most to describe Mario 3's controls is floaty. To some degree, I totally get that, but I feel as though the term floaty, when used to describe a game's controls, has mixed connotations. In some games, like the Super Smash Bros. Series, this is usually seen as a bad thing, and I suppose in the Mario series, it's really up to each individual player whether floaty controls are a good thing or a bad thing. In Mario 3 though, I don't even think the term fits. Mario jumps with purpose. He doesn't really linger in the air. Sure, Mario doesn't fall like a brick in Mario 3 like he did in Mario 1, but the rest of the series would follow suit with this game and make Mario land from his jumps with grace. I wouldn't describe Mario as floaty, I would describe him as jumping with a lot of oomph. He jumps so far off the ground in this game that anything feels possible with a run and a jump, and that is such a blissful feeling. Mario has heaps of mid-air maneuverability, and when Mario jumps off an enemy, the player can hold the jump button to make Mario absolutely soar. This is probably my favorite change in the controls from Mario 1 to Mario 3 personally. Another much needed change from Mario 1 is the addition of backtracking in levels. The entire level is available at all times, usually, and that makes Mario 3 a great game for exploration. You know what else makes for great exploration? Expansions and new ideas was the name of the game for Mario 3, and that showed itself big time in the Power-Ups department. All the Power-Ups from Mario 1 are back. That includes the 1-Up Mushroom that gives Mario an extra life, the Super Mushroom that gives Mario an extra hit at the cost of growing in size, the Starman that makes Mario invincible and able to kill enemies on contact for a short time, and the Fire Flower, an upgrade on the Super Mushroom that gives Mario the ability to throw fireballs and, for the first time in the North American version at least, the ability to take a third hit before dying. What Mario 3 introduced were alternatives to the Fire Flower that gave Mario some options when it came to tackling the level. The main competition for the Fire Flower is the newfangled Super Leaf that turns Mario into a raccoon and gives him the ability to fly for a short time, provided he has the runway necessary to pick up enough speed to take off. The power of flight gives Mario the ability to break some levels, which is not a good thing, but it also gives Mario even more possibility to explore the levels this game has to offer. There's so many little secrets in the skies, including coins, 1-Up mushrooms, and pipes to hidden areas, and the game is quite liberal in giving out the Super Leaf, meaning you are constantly exploring the skies, especially early on in the game. The Super Leaf isn't the only addition to the roster, however. There are 3 more new power-ups added to Mario 3 that act as uber power-ups, although their usage is restricted by their rarity. The first of these power-ups is the Tanuki suit, which is pretty much a straight upgrade on the Super Leaf. In addition to all the abilities the Super Leaf has, including the underrated offensive tail whip raccoon Mario possesses, the Tanuki suit gives Mario the ability to turn into an invulnerable statue for a short time, killing any enemies he lands on and being immune to the touch until he comes out of the statue. This ability is actually the only way to kill the annoying Rotodisc enemies that are seen in many of the fortress levels. The second of these overpowered power-ups is the Frog suit, which makes Mario do this. This is an upgrade? Besides the extra hit it gives Mario, the frog suit is nearly useless on land. I'm sure you can get really good at using the frog suit to jump around on land, but it fails to give you the maneuverability that all other forms of Mario have on land and is not a very good power-up. Of course, that's on land. After only appearing in 2 levels in Mario 1 and being entirely absent in Mario 2, dihydrogen monoxide is back, motherfuckers. Water is back and better than ever in Mario 3, and that's a good thing. Never mind the jump button is still used to rise, this sucks. There's quite a few water levels in this game, especially in the ocean world, and there are more levels that have water that rises and falls, and other levels that just have pits of water. The latter 2 of those are both new to Mario 3. I'm not a fan of the water levels in this game, however, as the controls don't allow the water levels to be as fun as the land levels. However, there is a fix to that, and it's that damn pesky frog suit. Frog Mario controls like a charm underwater, being controlled by the D-pad, being able to stay still without having to tread water, and responding fluidly to each input. The last of the Ubers is my personal favorite, the hammer suit. This allows Mario to throw hammers on an arc, sacrificing Fire Mario's range for more kill power, as the hammers kill many enemies the fireballs don't kill, such as boos and thwomps. These power-ups are all great when used correctly, but as I alluded to earlier, they're quite rare. They can be found in some toad houses starting in World 2, and can be found in some secret areas, but are not available anywhere near the same frequency as the Fire Flower and the Super Leaf. Because of this balance between usability and rarity, I like the inclusion of all 3 of these power-ups a lot, and I'm surprised the 2D Mario series hasn't used a power-up system like this again. Now that we're done with power-ups, just kidding. Introduced alongside the world map is a set of power-ups used only on the map. The first one is a hammer. It breaks a rock. The second power-up is the music box, and this one is slightly more interesting. Slightly. There will be roaming enemies on the map such as Hammer Bros that will immediately start a battle with Mario if he tries to occupy the same space as the enemy, but you can use the music box to put the enemies to sleep and pass them by. I don't find this to be very useful, but it at least does have a use that brings a slight amount of excitement. The third power-up is the cloud. It allows you to skip a level, that's it. These power-ups are kinda lame. I understand why they're in the game, but often they just go unused and clog up my inventory. And speaking of clogging up my inventory... Wait, Mario has an inventory? Mario got yet another upgrade with Mario 3, as he now sports a pretty hefty inventory that PUBG players everywhere would lust over. I usually don't run into trouble with inventory limits, which is great because there are some early Nintendo games that were snake bitten by limited inventory. Now that that's out of the way, I'll try to replicate the perfect segue I had before. And speaking of clogging up my inventory...
Ooh, this be hitting different.
The Pea Flower gives Mario a super leaf that gives him unlimited flight for 1 level, and this is some dumb shit. I never use these because it's basically skipping a level without completing it, and that isn't my idea of fun. The last collectible power-up in Mario 3 is the Warp Whistle. In Mario 1, you could find warp zones in secret areas in the game, and in Mario 2, a similar system allowed Mario to warp if he went down certain jars in subspace. Mario 3 takes us to the next level, hiding 3 warp whistles in the game, giving you 3 chances at portable warp zones. This is so cool, and I have fond memories of trying to find these, but once again, when playing the game today, I never tend to use these. We've now firmly established that Mario 3 has an excellent foundation, but just how much right does this game do? I figure it's time for a quick, abridged look at what Mario 3's levels have to offer. World 1 starts us off in a grassland, giving us familiar looking levels to start off the adventure. The first few levels serve as tutorial levels in a way, with the level design guiding players to discover the new concepts Mario 3 introduces. These include things like flying with Raccoon Mario, being able to hold on to Koopa shells for the first time in the series, and these P-switches. These switches Freaky Friday all coins and brick blocks for a short time, sometimes creating a surplus of coins to collect, sometimes allowing access to secrets, and later in the game even being used directly for progression. As you've probably noticed by now, there are events on the map other than the levels in the roaming Hammer Bros. The 3 you'll likely see in World 1 are the Toad House, the Spade Roulette game, and the Memory game. There are Toad Houses pretty much everywhere, and these allow for Mario to choose an item randomly out of 3 chests. The 3 items up for grabs are usually a mushroom, a super leaf, and a fire flower, but in certain Toad Houses, sometimes there are Ubers in play too. The item goes straight into Mario's inventory rather than affecting Mario immediately, making early Toad houses useful for gathering large amounts of power-ups in later levels. The spade roulette games are also static like Toad houses, and this is a simple roulette where you try to match a mushroom for 2 lives, a flower for 3 lives, and a star for 5 lives. This roulette is timeable, but I suck horribly at getting lives off this. Luckily, getting lives has become very easy in Mario 3 compared to the first 2 games, and that's a good thing in my opinion. In addition to the spade roulette, there's a roulette in each normal level that occurs at the end of the level, replacing the flagpole. Mario stops the roulette when he touches the box, and while this appears random at first glance, you can reliably get stars by running at full speed into the box, and that can reliably get you lives every few levels. The same life payout applies from the spade roulette for mushrooms, flowers, and stars, but you will get a single life even if you're unable to match 3 of the same card. If you're as anti-gambling as the state of Alabama, though, you can still get more lives than ever before by collecting 1-ups in the levels, as these are so much more common than in the first 2 games. You can potentially reach 1-up overload at a certain point, but I'd rather a Mario game be too lenient with 1-ups than too strict, personally, so this isn't a negative mark on the game. The Toad houses and spade roulettes are static, but the memory game will appear every time you earn 80,000 score. This memory game isn't anything special, as it's a basic game that requires you to match 2, and it gives you 2 tries before booting you out. Luckily, they had the foresight to have the game remember your progress, so if you have a great memory or a pencil, you can use that to your advantage. My favorite thing about this is it gives a real meaning to the score tally. In Mario 1, score was useless, and in Mario 2, it was absent entirely. In Mario 3, I actually have a reason to try and kill enemies for score to more quickly accrue items through the memory game. This is cool. Each world follows a similar structure. There will usually be around 2 to 5 levels until you hit a fortress, and then another few levels until you hit the castle, where the king is being held captive. Later worlds add more than 1 fortress to the world, and also have other levels that aren't numbered, but this is the basic formula for most of the game. These numbered levels can be all sorts of things. In World 1, these are mostly grassland stages, with a few exceptions. World 1 and 4 is an auto-scroller stage, the first of its kind in the Mario series. Auto-scrollers are stages where the player isn't in control of the pace of the level, as the level moves at a fixed pace. I used to dislike these as a kid because these levels usually mean a lot of waiting around, but I've grown quite fond of them in the Mario universe for the most part, and I think Mario 3 handles them well. 1-5 is our first underground level, and these generally follow the same tropes as the underground levels from Mario 1, right down to the remixed Mario 1 underground music and the nearly all black background. These are fine for what they are, but I'm usually not super excited when my level starts with a pipe. The fortresses act as sort of halfway points in the world, and are thematically similar to the castles from Mario 1. Unlike the barren, lava-filled castles from that game though, Mario 3's fortresses feel imposing and like real threats. World 1's fortress isn't the best example, being fairly simple and mostly containing lava and spikes. At the end of each fortress is a fight with Boom Boom, aka the simplest boss fight ever. Upon finally getting to the castle for the first time, you may expect a level similar to the fortress levels, but no, this is still a friendly castle. Toad's panicking, useless as ever, and the king is still a furry, but this is not the level. Instead, Mario boards an airship and... oh man, these levels are so cool. Airship levels are a whole new beast, expanding upon the idea of the castles from Mario 1 by having these imposing levels filled with traps and fire, but the airship does this so much better. The airships are auto-scrollers, and when combined with the cannons, bullet bills, rocky wrenches, and flamethrowers these airships tend to have, they tend to temporarily make Mario 3 less of a platformer and more of a bullet hell. Unfortunately, the bosses at the end of these airships are the Koopalings, Bowser's kids. These fights aren't too much tougher than the Boom Boom fights, although to their credit, the fight does evolve over the game. World 2 is a desert level, and it's where the adventure really begins. The first few levels introduce us to standard desert fare, such as fire snakes, quicksand, and, I'm not shitting you, the pile driver micro Goomba. The fortress picks things up though, and this is one of my favorite levels in the game. We get the first appearance of Boo, the ghost that chases you when your back is turned but freezes when you face it. We also get Thwomp, who has a crush fetish. Both of these are iconic Mario enemies, and alongside the undead Drybones, who was introduced in the first fortress, they make this fortress a heck of a lot of fun. 2-3 and 2-4 are quite standard, but both have fun aspects to them. At the end of 2-3, you have to use Koopa shells to make a Rube Goldberg-like space to access the warp pipe, and 2-4 rewards Raccoon Mario with a full upper section of the level full of coins. 2-5 is notable for introducing the Chain Chomp to the series. The Pyramid is my least favorite level in this world, as it's just slow to get through, but the sand level more than makes up for it. The first half is standard stuff, but the Angry Sun... man, he's angry. The biggest thing on display in World 2 is the world theming. Mario 3 is the first Mario game to go all the way with theming its worlds, and the precedent has been set for future Mario games to world build as well as this 1990 NES game did. World 3 is the beach world, which means glub glub you fuckers, we have water levels. As mentioned before, this game handles underwater levels poorly due to the slow, sluggish, and unreliable controls Mario typically sports underwater. 3-2 is our first level with variable water levels, and this is one area of the controls where I can pick some nits. I find it quite difficult to jump out of the water on these levels, and it's a bit of a sequence breaker. The first fortress in this world is notable because it's another one of my favorites, a needle in the haystack puzzle where choosing the wrong door dunks you in the water. The time limit is back from Mario 1, and while it is less of an issue in Mario 3, these types of levels become pressure cookers under these time limits, and this fortress is the first of a few. If you know the right door like I do because of the frustration, then this level is practically one big joke. Again, I get the challenges of the hardware limitations of the NES, but I have to compare this against the giants, and it doesn't hold up. The rest of the world is filled with water levels like the previous ones, with the one notable exception being Stage 3-7 that introduces the spike enemies that throw spike balls at Mario. World 3 is my personal least favorite world in Mario 3, and it's mostly because of the piss poor water controls and my inability to jump out of the water properly in this game. I do like the boat ride you can access though. World 4 is Giant Land, where everything is bigger than you're used to. It's like Texas. If this feels like a gimmicky idea for a world, you'd be right. I like this world, it's a cool idea, but it feels like they were running out of ideas with this one. Some of the standout stages include 4-3, which is a decently tough level, 4-6, which lets you switch between big enemies and small enemies, and the first fortress, which proved that thwomps should be strictly vertical, not horizontal. This world is quite short, and while a lot of people look fondly on this world, it does only go as far as the big things gimmick does. World 5 is the world that really separates the men from the less talented men, as normal as it looks from the start. The first few levels aren't too memorable, other than 5-3, which features the exceedingly obscure power-up Kariba's Shoe. After finishing the spiral-like tower level though, World 5 reveals itself to be a sky world, and I love these. Sky worlds mean lots of platforming, and pure platforming levels are always fun in Mario games. One of my favorite levels in this whole game is level 5-6, which has you jumping from flying insects to other flying insects. The second fortress is also fun, having you dodge lava from the floor and the ceiling, but man is this level horribly ugly. 5-9 is a wicked auto-scroller that introduces us to these flame chomps that I wish weren't in the game. Overall, I'd say this is where the game starts getting to be more difficult, and I know this is where many of my childhood saves went to die. Playing it now though, I actually consider World 5 to be my personal favorite world in the game. World 6 is where we start getting slippery. Mario 1 had some levels that used a snow aesthetic, but the gimmick didn't affect gameplay. Mario 2 saw a nice world that had some interesting concepts, but it didn't feel fully fleshed out. Mario 3 sees a graphical overhaul, some very interesting level ideas, and this frantic map theme to make an ice world that genuinely feels like an ice world. Now, not every level in the ice world is a hit. For every good level this world has, like 6-7 and 6-10, there's a level that frustrates me, like level 6-5 that forces you to solve a looping puzzle. Fun fact, grabbing this Koopa shell and achieving liftoff with Raccoon Mario to fly up this corridor is surprisingly hard to do with Joy-Cons. World 6 is the longest world in the game, and while it's clear to me the development team had a lot of good ideas here, it does feel a tad long-winded. Pipes. My favorite Windows screensaver. It doesn't translate as well to Mario 3 worlds though. I don't dislike World 7, but it does take a bit to get going. There are some unique levels here that take advantage of Mario 3's vertical level design, and the roaming hammer bros are replaced by these weird plant levels. However, navigating this world map is a pain in the ass, and I don't think they had as many good ideas for the pipe world as they did for Worlds 5 and 6. That said, this world does have some gems. 7-6 is the most fun puzzle platformer level in the game, with excellent usage of these steerable platforms. The first fortress is another interesting puzzle and feels much like a precursor to the future Ghost House levels. 7-7 is my highlight of the world, as it requires the maintenance of invincibility through Starman power-ups and is quite the fun obstacle course. After defeating the final Koopaling, you receive a letter not from Princess Toadstool, but from Bowser. I love that he's an evil reptilian tyrant with plans to take over the world, and he addresses Mario with a yo. Anyway, it took him long enough, but Bowser kidnapped Toadstool and now you have to rescue her. And you gotta do it on Bowser's turf. World 8 is pretty much non-stop action. You start with auto-scroller after auto-scroller, and if you like the airship levels as much as me, this is an exhilarating start to the world. After clearing a few of these levels, we move on to the suspicious-looking straightaway before being kidnapped. We have 3 short levels here that feel like micro levels, much like the plant levels from World 7, and I like this part of the world a lot. Only after clearing these in another airship do we move on to the first and only numbered levels. 8-1 and 8-2 are tough levels that utilize a lot of the skills that the players have learned throughout the game, and the fortress level is an extension to this. After clearing one more airship, we have the final level, Bowser's Castle. This is unfortunately a puzzle level, meaning you can do this one quite quickly if you know what to do. These Bowser statues are hecka cheap with the lasers, and this room is atrocious looking, but I have no problems with the rest of this castle. I do wish the final level of the game had been more of a physical challenge rather than a mental one, but hey, what can you do? The final boss against Bowser is much more climactic than the final boss from Mario 1, and it's an interesting fight that requires strategy and dodging ability, but much like a lot of the bosses throughout Mario 3, he's not very difficult. After giving Bowser the rope-a-dope, you rescue Princess Toadstool, she pranks you, and roll credits. As you can see, Mario 3 has tons of depth and gets a lot right. The story isn't necessarily one of those things. Based on this abridged run-through, you can imagine how much I like this game. Super Mario Bros. 3 added so much to the Mario franchise, and feels like the culmination of an era of Nintendo dominance. Mario 3 takes the basic, addicting structure from the original Super Mario Bros. And does unspeakable things to it. That's one thing Mario 3 deserves a lot of credit for, the amount of ideas crammed in this thing. Lots of aspects of the game are clearly inspired by Mario 1, such as the power-ups and enemies. We discussed a lot of the new enemies, or at least the ones that are still relevant to the Mario series, but the enemies from Mario 1 make up the backbone of Bowser's army once again. Goombas, Koopa Troopas, Piranha Plants, Lakitus, Cheep Cheeps, Bloopers, Hammer Bros, Buzzy Beetles, and Bullet Bills all return from Mario 1, and a few of them see upgraded forms, including the Paragoomba, the Venus Fire Trap, Boomerang Bros, the Rare Fire Bros and Obesity Bros, Buzzy Beetles with opposable thumbs, Big Cheep Cheeps, Bullet Bills that track Mario's horizontal position, Cheep Cheeps that are bad parents, Kate Gosselin, and these Goombas that convinced me my game was broken as a kid. Despite Mario 3 being very clearly a successor to the original Super Mario Bros., the game borrows a surprising amount from Super Mario Bros. 2. Some of these borrowed mechanics include Mario's ability to grab Koopa shells and brick blocks for the first time, vertical platforming levels with screen wrapping, respawning key enemies, and lotteries for 1-ups. These additions give Mario 3 a lot of its depth and make this game feel so much more modern than Mario 1. But let's give credit where credit is due. Mario 3 created a lot of the level trips that we know Mario for today. The fortress levels, airships, auto-scrollers, controllable platforms, donut lifts, Mario's ability to slide, and other features have become Mario's staples starting with this game. Mario 3's biggest legacy for me is its grandeur, and that can be spotted in the required playtime to beat Mario 3. Mario 1 takes about an hour or two to beat, and Mario 2 clocks in at about 2 or 3 hours. Mario 3 is an adventure that takes at least 4 hours or so, and if one is looking for secrets and beating every level, that number can balloon. Oh, did I say secrets? Well, for anyone who's a big fan of Mario 1's secrets, Mario 3 basically does the same thing but on a much bigger scale. Mario 3 features a ton of rooms with coins and ton of coin heavens, much like the original game. Of course, there's the warp whistles hidden in the game from a difficulty scale of break this rock, dummy, to fly past this normal looking wall, to stand on the white platform, hold down for 5 seconds, and fall onto the other side of the stage before walking past the black wall at the end of the level. And of course there's other stuff. There's rooms with uber items, rooms with P-switches, rooms with 1-ups, and all kinds of other hidden junk that give me dopamine rushes when I find them. A lot of newer Mario games go, hey, congrats on finding this hole, kid, here's a 1-up. Mario 3 makes you work for any and every secret, to the point where I didn't find some secrets at all as a kid. There are some levels, usually one per world, that give you an opportunity to unlock a white toad house by collecting every coin in the level. In odd-numbered worlds, these toad houses give you a P-wing, which isn't anything to get excited about, but in even-numbered worlds, you get an anchor, which is an item exclusive to these white toad houses that isn't anything to get excited about. The anchor allows you to keep an airship at the castle after losing a life, instead of the airship flying away. The reason I don't have footage of this is because I've never gotten one of these. Yep, I'm flawed. Another exceedingly rare sight is the treasure ship. To illustrate how rare these are, here are the requirements. You must be in World 1, 3, 5, or 6, as these are the only worlds with Wandering Hammer Bros, whose presence is also required. You must finish a level having a coin count with the 10s and 1s slot being the same digit, and it can't be 0 coins. That same digit must then match the 10s digit of your score at the end of the level. Finally, the timer must finish on an even number. These are pretty tough to line up, and the amount of random variables required to see this event means it's practically impossible to find a treasure ship on accident. I found a treasure ship on accident. Since I spawned the treasure ship in World 5's first fortress on the mainland, it transformed the Hammer Bros in the sky section of the world into the treasure ship. My first indication I even got the treasure ship was when I finished the sky castle, went to the cloudy part of the world, and sat there confused and trying to remember what this damn ship was. If this hadn't occurred to me on my one recorded playthrough for this channel, I would have never known what level I spawned this treasure ship in. Mario 3 confounded me. A game from 1990, an NES game, had me confused sitting on my couch in 2020, wondering what the hell was going on. One thing everyone seems to remember about Mario 3 is its art style, and man, I can't believe we've never seen a 2D Mario game themed like this again. If you couldn't tell from the bolted-on flat platforms, these platforms that move through the sky on a visible track, and the fact that Mario literally exits stage right after each level, Super Mario Bros. 3 is heavily implied to be a play. I love this idea. It doesn't affect the game any, and only serves to make the game more memorable. The creation of Super Mario Bros. 3 was taxing on every member of the Nintendo All-Star development team, but no one had a more difficult time than composer Koji Kondo. Kondo had already written the two most memorable hooks of his entire career. This, and this. Mario 3 was a new adventure, and so it needed a new soundtrack. Mario 1's soundtrack is brief, and Mario 2's soundtrack is comprised of either remixes or songs that weren't composed as Mario songs. Super Mario Bros. 3 saw an overhaul, with a sprawling soundtrack that features almost entirely new tracks. The main overworld theme is represented by the music from the Music Box Power-Up, but otherwise is surprisingly absent from Mario 3. I guess this was back when Nintendo had self-restraint. The main theme is a catchy, Caribbean-inspired reggae-type tune that is honestly one of Kondo's most impressive 8-bit pieces. The underground theme is remixed from Mario 1's iconic tune, adding 808s to fill the song a bit more and give it a hip-hop vibe. The underwater theme is based heavily on Mario 1's underwater theme, but is forgettable. The fortress theme, unlike Mario 1's dire-sounding song, is more atmospheric and unsettling than anything, and sets the tone for future castle themes. The airships get their own song, featuring military-like cadence befitting of these warships. Getting their own theme for the first time are athletic levels, stages usually based on pure platforming. This song is probably the one from the soundtrack that has been reused the most. Galaxy fans know where I'm coming from with that one. Hammer Bros battles, Toad houses, Starman power-ups, Spade houses, Coin heavens, and each world map have their own ditties as well, and some of these are phenomenal. Bowser's final theme is good, but feels like an odd fit. It fits the fight, but feels more at home with the style of Mario 2's soundtrack to me. Everything ends with a bang, as Mario 3 has one of my favorite ending themes in the entire Mario series. Things have been almost entirely positive as of this point in the review, and that's about to change, because we're gonna get nitpicky. It's time for an array of small problems I have with the game that aren't anything near experience ruiners, but they do hold Mario 3 back from being perfect in the literal sense. One semi-problem from Super Mario Bros. Decided to grow and become an even bigger problem in Super Mario Bros. 3, and that's the lack of a save system. Mario 1's lack of saving was an issue, but wasn't one I docked the game too harshly for, and Mario 2 was the same way. Mario 3, on the other hand, has no excuse. This is a long game, and the lack of a save once again puzzles me. Theoretically, warp whistles are here to solve this issue, but new players won't know where to find these whistles, and may find this lack of a save system to be a deal breaker. I have save states, luckily. One big problem from Super Mario Bros. Decided to shrink and become a smaller problem in Super Mario Bros. 3, and that's the time limit. The seconds seem to be slower in Mario 3, and I found myself rarely coming against the last 100 seconds in levels. In fact, I only heard the speed up music once in my entire playthrough. Of course, the puzzle levels are much tougher for newcomers, and they will struggle with the time limit, but this is about as unobtrusive as the time limit could get. My past issues with the time limit stifling exploration still exist, but is also lessened, as the more lenient time limit usually means I can explore levels until my heart is content. Mario 3's equivalent to Mario 1's lack of backtracking, as in, how the hell was this not fixed, is the player's inability to replay completed levels. Although I rarely had this issue when playing for this review, I remember as a kid always wishing I could replay certain levels, and I am genuinely surprised this feature wasn't around yet. This, combined with the linearity of the game and the nature of the secrets mostly being on a level scale and not a bigger game scale, means a lot of playthroughs follow a nearly identical track and makes playthroughs less distinct. You know, except for the playthroughs where you accidentally find a treasure ship. Part of the reason Super Mario Bros. 3 looks and feels so impressive compared to the first two Mario games is due to an upgrade on NES cartridges halfway through the console's lifespan. Mario 3 was made with technology that made some impressive things possible. The addition of Raccoon Mario and his flight ability means that, for the first time in a Mario game, the screen can scroll diagonally, rather than just horizontally or vertically. This does wonders for exploration, but came at the cost of all this. While Mario 3 may look leagues better than Mario's other Famicom outings, there still are limitations. Sprites are still limited to 3 colors, and backgrounds still feel not as detailed as possible, even though I still believe this game looks quite swell. The game lags every now and then where there's too much shit happening, and this is about the same level as it was in Mario 2. It isn't anywhere near game-breaking, but I did notice it enough to feel the need to mention it in this review. The last important drawback of being an NES game is the lack of memory games were still being afforded. While Mario 3 has a ton of levels, an astonishing 90 compared to Mario 1's 32 and Mario 2's 20, the NES's low memory meant these levels had to be a bit shorter. These levels don't feel like junk food or anything, they do feel significant, but this means checkpoints got the axe. Mario 1 had invisible checkpoints halfway through the stage, and Mario 2 would respawn you in the same room you previously died in. I never thought that this was game-breaking either, but this is a part of Mario 3 that feels aged. Maybe the most interesting limitations of Mario 3's potential came not from what the NES's drawbacks affected, but what they prevented from happening in the first place. As many ideas as Mario 3 brought to the table, you just know that the Nintendo development team had so many more ideas than we saw. Ultimately, a lot of these ideas would be on display in this game's follow-up, Super Mario World, including director Shigeru Miyamoto's long-standing wish to have Mario ride a mount. Preferably something like a dinosaur, I don't know. By and large, Nintendo did an exceedingly good job at designing Super Mario Bros. 3. Almost everything is perfect, to the point that these upcoming complaints are hilariously minor in comparison. I'm always annoyed when I have to use the warp pipes on the map. I wish the Toad houses let me choose an item before reading the whole text. What a waste of time. I wish the inventory had slightly more room. Some of the difficulty jumps still feel a tad rough, although these are usually just, this level is way more difficult than anything else in the world. 2 players back and improved as players switch off after each life as well as each level cleared, meaning both players have opportunities to play. They can play against each other for score or play in a crappy battle mode based on Mario Bros. Despite being improved, this is still not what I want out of a 2-player Mario experience in 2020. I think probably the biggest negative of the whole Mario 3 experience is how lame the bosses are. I harped on this in Mario 1, mostly because the bosses were the same easy Bowser fights every single time. Mario 3 has a bunch of bosses though, and pretty much all of these are lame. Boom Boom guards the fortresses in some of World 8's levels, and he is initially very simple to defeat, but he evolves to fly and even run around like a madman later in the game. The room layouts change as well, but Boom Boom's lack of invincibility frames makes this fight super simple to cheese, and that never changes. The Koopalings are also easy, with the exception of Wendy O, who gave me some trouble surprisingly. These characters are quite underwhelming design-wise too, and their names, while clever nods to mostly famous musicians, don't make them any more memorable. These fights being so weak and prevalent means airship and fortress levels are often ending on a whimper rather than a bang. Boss fights are one thing the Mario team has struggled with time after time, and nowhere does it stand out more than here. Super Mario Bros. 3 would come to the Super Nintendo just a few years after its release on the NES, with the release of the Super Mario All-Stars compilation. And hey, everything looks different. When looking at the All-Stars version, you can see exactly where the NES held back the graphic design. Everyone has their own opinion on which graphics look better, and personally, I like how lively All-Stars makes everything. The SNES upgrade to the soundtrack is lovely too. A save feature was added, along with some other dejankification. Super Mario Bros. 3 would be re-released as the final game in the Super Mario Advance collection of games, Super Mario Advance 4. This came out of order chronologically as it was released behind two Super Nintendo games, but whatever. This version is heavily based on the All-Stars port, but changes some minor things. The most interesting thing added to the game was e-reader capability. This added new levels to the game, and hardly anyone had the e-reader because its most interesting use as a GBA add-on was probably this: an extra feature in a game from 1990. Besides these re-releases, Mario 3 was made available on the Wii, Wii U, and 3DS through Virtual Console, and is one of the games available on the Nintendo Switch via Nintendo Switch Online. I personally played this one on my Switch, but any of the above options will allow you to get the full experience this game has to offer. When Shigeru Miyamoto, Takashi Tezuka, and the rest of the Mario team began work on Super Mario Bros. 3, they wanted it to be the ultimate Mario. Their smart marketing and ability to take advantage of a negative situation, and their meticulous work on making sure everything worked perfectly led to the hype actually being fulfilled, and many customers getting their money's worth out of Super Mario Bros. 3. Nintendo's greatest legacy as a gaming company is their ability to make fun games, and Super Mario Bros. 3 accomplished that for nearly anyone who played it. Whether that be a 1990 skeptic who thought video games were a fad, or an excited young kid who wanted the newest Mario game, or some kid growing up in the 2000s with a Game Boy Advance and a thirst for exploration. Oh hey, that's me. As a kid, I went on many road trips and days out, so having portable gaming systems was a must. I had a Game Boy Advance, a Nintendo DS, and a PlayStation Portable as a kid, all interchangeable, all with their own array of game libraries. Despite all these modern games I had at my disposal, I always found myself going for Super Mario Advance 4 to go make another go at beating it. I never consciously thought about this being an old game. I saw 1988 on the title screen, I saw that dastardly Super Mario Bros. 3 subtitle, but as far as I was concerned, this was just another game, and a damn good one at that. I have so much childhood nostalgia related to Super Mario Bros. 3, but I wanted to play this game again in 2020 to make sure that I wasn't just some impressionable kid, and I was vindicated. Super Mario Bros. 3 is every bit as fun in 2020 as it was in 1990. It has its own reasons to be played instead of newer Mario titles. It has modern sensibility and tight controls, and anytime you can play a game 30 years old and still have something occur that leaves you gobsmacked, that means the game developers have created something special. Super Mario Bros. 3 blazed a trail for the Mario series that would end up shaping the future. Uncompromising in its vision and peerless in its quality, Super Mario Bros. 3 doesn't need disclaimers. It is one of the best video games of all time, and it gets to join the ruling class, probably for a long time, on the Glut.